Now that your machine is fully connected and loaded with product, it's time to talk about some of the service aspects of the machine. It's also a great time to remind you that with your equipment came all of the service manuals and installation guides that you need. It's a good idea to read these through thoroughly so you're familiar with your equipment. You can either look at these in the hard copy form that came with your equipment, or you can also find digital copies on the dealer website. The service of the machine is relatively easy and simple to do. So let's open up the machine and have a look inside. So it's recommended that you service your machine at least once a week. If you have to go more frequently, that's a great thing because that means you're serving more coffees. When you're servicing machines, what we're talking about is filling your product, giving it a quick little service clean, and of course, collecting your cash. Now, when you look inside the machine, you'll notice that the components are color-coded. The blue components are the components that are designed to be removed from the machine for one purpose or another. The green components, these are action components that are used to make adjustments on your equipment. At this point right now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a mochaccino. It's always recommended that you make several coffees with the door open so you can see how the machine operates and you can get more familiar with it. Placing the cup in the proper location indicated on the tray, simply push the button. That sound that you hear right now, that is the beans being ground up and dropping into the brew group. Coming out first for the mochaccino is the milk. At this point now, your beans are being compressed and you'll see the coffee begin to come out. Lastly, for the mochaccino is the chocolate. Following the tube down, you can see that the chocolate is coming out now. And there you have it. There's your mochaccino. So at this point, let's take a moment and start removing some of these parts and show you some of the cleaning aspects of the machine. So the first components we're going to remove are going to be the product canisters. These ones up here at the top. First thing you want to do is reach underneath the thumb tab right here and push up. This closes off the chute and ensures that product does not come out of the canisters once you remove them. Simply then grab the handle, lift up gently, and remove them. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove the brew group again. Similar to the other video, simply grab the cover, lift up, and pull straight out. You'll notice there are two holes here that line up with the pegs to hold the cover in place. Next, we're going to remove the brew group hose. Simply turn the green lever clockwise and slide out. To the right of the brew group is an action lever. You need to carefully put your hand inside there, push that lever up, and the brew group will pop loose of the pegs that are securing it in place. With the brew group removed, we're now going to remove the mixing bowls, but there's a few things that you need to do first. The hose lines need to be removed from the bottom of the mixing bowl. Simply reach in and gently pull off. There is a water line hose here as well that also needs to be removed. Same thing. There's a blue hose down here at the bottom of the drip tray. Remove that one also. Now to remove the mixing bowls, you'll notice there are two green action levers at the bottom. Turn those levers to the right, it will snap into place, and just pull the mixing bowl out. With the mixing bowls removed, we can now remove the drip tray on the inside here. There is a brass thumb screw that needs to be removed. Turn in a counterclockwise direction and make sure you keep it in a safe place. With the thumb screw removed, simply grab the tray, slide out, from here, we want to remove the black tray at the front of the machine. And the last component to be removed is the coffee chute leading to the waste bin. Now that we have all of the components removed, let's take a closer look at each one of them individually. With the components out, we're going to have a much closer look on how to service each individual one. We're going to start again with the canisters. When you go to service your machines and your canisters already have product in them, it's recommended to just simply remove that product into a container and ensure that nothing is caught in the coils of the canister, nothing's caught in the chute, and that all the parts are still free-flowing and moving inside. Once you've confirmed that, you can then take that product, because it's still usable, put it back inside your canister, and then you can top it up with some fresh product as well. From the canisters, we're going to look at the brew group. To clean the brew group, it's just a quick, simple rinse with warm water, and then just a pat dry. There are a couple of screens inside the brew group that you want to make sure get cleaned regularly. And by regularly, it's on that once-a-week visit to ensure that it's operating properly. Once you've given that pat dry, you can then reinstall the brew group back inside your machine. Next, we're going to have a quick look at the mixing bowl. The mixing bowl actually breaks down into three parts. You have the lid, the gasket, and the bowl itself. They're snap-on, snap-off, so they're very easy to take apart in order to wash. You want to give the mixing bowl a good rinse, specifically down in the area where the hose is attached, just to make sure there's been no product buildup since your last visit. Once they've been rinsed and washed out, they're ready to go back in as well. From there, we have the drip tray for the mixing bowl. What's important about the drip tray is right here, the nozzles, where the product and the coffee itself comes out. You want to make sure that they are clean and there's been no buildup there as well. That, again, is just a simple, quick rinse with warm water and a pat dry. Then you have your drain tray. This you want to make sure is clean and you have no buildup inside. Again, there are two tabs on the side to remove the lid to make wiping down and cleaning up that much easier for you. Also worth mentioning is your coffee grind chute. This is where the used coffee grinds fall down into the waste basket in the base cabinet. You want to remove this, give this a quick rinse with warm water and another pat dry. And from there, you can just quickly do the same for the cover for the brew group. Just make sure there's no buildup on the inside of it before you reinstall. Now that you have all of the components removed, at this point, all you need to do is give the machine a quick, easy, simple wipe down with a damp cloth. Wipe down the bottom area here, up here on the canister shelf as well, and then you can just touch up any other areas that you see. Now to continue with the top up of your product, we're going to start with the cups. Remember, simply remove the lid, lift the carousel gently, and tilt forward, and the cups will slide right in. Over here on this door, you want to top up your sugar. It may not be necessary to fill the canister completely. It's going to be dependent on the level of consumption at your location. Then you want to top up your beans. It's important to remember that the freshness of the coffee is directly related to the freshness of the bean. It may not be necessary to always fill it right up to the top. It's going to depend on how many coffees you're selling in your location. If the coffee's bean is stale, you may not be getting the best coffee available. At this point now, let's go ahead and put the components back in. To reinstall the components, we're going to start with the brew group. As a reminder, there are two posts that line up with the holes on the brew group. These are the posts located here and here. There's also a spot where the blue gear will connect with the brew group. Simply turn that around, line up with the posts, and slide that on. Over on the right-hand side is the green action lever. Make sure to slide that up so the brew group fits snugly against the back of the machine. Next, we are going to install your mixing bowls. Again, ensure that the three components have been placed back together and it's snapped tight in place. Simply slide them in and you will feel the alignment and a small little click. Take the action lever and push it back to the left. Now your mixing bowls are in place. Next, we're going to install the blue drip tray. You'll notice that the hoses are 3 different lengths. That is so there's no confusion when you're reinstalling your hoses to the proper location on your inside of the machine. So go ahead, install the pegs into the back of the machine and on the keyhole on the side. Once you've installed your drip tray, finish it off by installing your thumb screw again. Connect your hoses to your mixing bowls, your water line. You'll need to connect your hose to your brew group, and then don't forget the drain hose underneath. With the hoses reinstalled, it's now time to replace the chute. This just simply fits into the bottom and sits underneath the brew group. You can reinstall the brew group cover. Gently slide that in. Ensure that the top holes are sitting over top of the posts. Just pull your hose down to fit through the cutout in the cover. Next is your drain tray for the bottom of the machine. That just slides right back in. And now we just need to replace our canisters one more time. So the canisters are in place, but we're not quite done yet. We need to make sure that the product chutes are leading back down into the mixing bowls. Simply angle them so they're pointed through the cutouts and slide the thumb tab down to open the chute again, which will allow the product to come out for your coffees. You now have reinstalled all the components back into your machine. With your machine serviced, it's time to move on to the base cabinet. We're going to start here with the white waste bin. This is where the excess coffee grinds fall into. Simply empty the bin, rinse it out with warm water. From there, you want to move on to the liquid waste container. This you empty by removing the float, pulling out the drain hose. You want to make sure when you empty that you're going to use hot water and sometimes some dish soap in order to give that a really good clean. Reinstall the float, ensure that it's hanging freely, reinstall your waste tube, and you're ready to go. With every service visit, you want to make sure that your water supply is filled up to the top. You also want to ensure that the intake line is free of any kinks or it's not pinched in any way, and that the check valve is located at the bottom of the container to ensure proper draw of the water up into the machine. And over here on the door, you want to service your payment system. You'll want to make sure that it's sufficiently loaded with enough change to provide to your customers should they need it. Just a reminder also that if you need to disconnect or remove your payment system for any reason, you want to make sure you do so with the power off to the machine. And that's it. You've now fully serviced your machine and your base cabinet, and you're ready to go on to your next location. I'd like to call your attention to the inside of the door. Just beside the cup carousel, you will notice this white label. This white label corresponds with the function buttons that are inside that we've already seen. To access the function buttons, simply push down on the tab and remove the cover. Each function button is specific for one action of the machine. The programming one we've already talked about, and that gives you access to the menus on how to program the machine. The button over on the top left, that's the reset button. Should for any reason you ever get any type of error message on the screen of your machine, simply push the reset button and let the machine recalibrate itself. Jumping down to the bottom button, that is your stats button. Pushing that button will display on the screen the total number of beverages that have been dispensed since the installation of the machine. The button that you're going to use most frequently is the one in the middle on the left-hand side. That is the rinse button. Pushing that button runs steaming hot water down through the mixing bowls and the brew group. This is helpful to do before you do any type of servicing, as it just gets rid of any last residual that might be in the machine. The other time you're going to use the rinse button is when you install a new water jug. That will allow the system to remove any air bubbles that happens to be in it and reprime the water system for the machine. So I'll show you how that's done now. Simply push the button in the middle on the left. now going to take a few minutes and review how to prepare your machine for transportation to the location. The most important thing that you need to know is that the machine itself needs to stay in an upright position. In order to do that, we're going to separate the machine from the base cabinet in order to transport. The cups, they can stay inside the carousel. You can also leave the sugar in the canister. But we do recommend closing the chutes to your canisters, removing each one, and transporting them separately, and then reinstalling them back into the machine once the machine is set up on location. The coffee beans, you have two choices here. One, you can leave the beans in the hopper. That's fine as long as the machine stays in an upright position. If you choose to remove the beans, make sure you close the green chute to the hopper. Simply lift out the beans. There are going to be some loose residual beans left over on the inside. They either have to be removed by hand or they have to be vacuumed out before you transport. To remove the machine from the base cabinet, you need to remove the two locking screws that you installed earlier. You will also need to make sure that you remove the pins that went into the four corners of the machine that secure it to the base cabinet. That's an important step. Failing to remove those pins could result in them being bent during transportation. For your base cabinet, you want to ensure that your waste bin is empty, your waste canister has no liquid in it, and you want to remove your water supply source. Over here for your payment system, you want to make sure that the power is disconnected, the payment system is removed. You can then reinstall it once the machine is back on location. Now we're going to have a look at the back of the machine to see how we need to prepare it for transport. To prepare the back of the machine for transport, we need to reverse the connection that we did during our setup. It's very important to make sure that you drain your reservoir of any water that's in there right now. To do that, you're going to use your waste container. Simply remove the drain hose that's clipped to the right-hand side of the machine. Place the drain hose over the container and open the clip. Once the reservoir is empty, simply put the clip back onto the hose and attach it back to the side of the machine. From there, you're going to remove your MDB cable by simply pulling straight out, carefully removing it, coming back around the hoses, and leave it hanging down. If you connected your float, you're going to disconnect that next. Then you're also going to disconnect your pump system. Feeding that cable back through the access hole on the side of the housing. The last piece that you're going to do is you're going to disconnect your water intake hose from the reservoir. Simply pinch the clip, pull down, and remove the hose. Now here's a little tip to make sure that your clip doesn't slide away from you. You can take this clip, add it to your reservoir hose, and then put the clamp back on. And now you know exactly where your clip's going to be once you transport your machine to your location. From here, you're going to feed your hose and your cables back through the service channel into the base cabinet, and then you are free to remove the machine from the cabinet.